Family doesn't do this to family. My mother's words echo through the courthouse as officers lead her away in handcuffs. Her designer clothes have been replaced by a plain black dress that seems to swallow her whole frame. For a moment, our eyes lock. The woman who raised me, who once held my small hand crossing streets, who taught me how to apply lipstick in middle school and now glaring at me with pure hatred. 8 years in state prison. The judge's sentence still rings in my ears. Standing in that crowded courtroom, I can feel the weight of every eye reporters, spectators, distant relatives who've come to witness the fall of Barbara and Howard Carson, once respected pillars of our community, now exposed as the frauds they always were. Emily. My sister Sarah's hand finds mine, squeezing tight. It's over, is it? I wonder, when does betrayal truly end? When can you finally stop looking over your shoulder, expecting the people who should love you most to stab you in the back? As my parents disappear through heavy wooden doors, I feel something unexpected and not guilt, not regret, but a strange, bittersweet lightness. Like setting down a burden I've carried my entire life without realizing how heavy it was. I'm Emily Carson, 36, VP of Operations at Meridian Tech, and this is the story of how I sent my parents to prison. 6 months earlier, the call came on a Tuesday afternoon while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Just another ordinary day until my world tilted on its axis. Ms. Carson? This is Andrea from Atlantic Shore Bank. I'm calling about the delinquent payments on your beach house loan. I frowned, my fingers pausing over my keyboard. There must be some mistake. I don't have any loans with Atlantic Shore. The loan was taken out 3 months ago, secured against your property at 1842 Ocean Drive. According to our records, you're behind by $12,000. My stomach clenched. The beach house, my sanctuary, my reward to myself after years of climbing the corporate ladder, was paid for in full. I'd bought it outright last year, a testament to my rise from the struggling immigrant's daughter to tech executive. That's impossible, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. I own that house free and clear. Papers rustled on Andrea's end. I have the documentation right here, Miss Carson. Your signatures are on all the forms. The loan is for $450,000, with your parents listed as co-borrowers. My parents. A memory flashed my 8th birthday, opening a savings account with money from my grandmother. My father standing proudly beside me at the bank. This is how responsible people handle money, Emily. Always save for the future. The same father who'd later borrow from that account when his gambling debts mounted, promising to pay it back soon. Send me copies of everything, I told Andrea, scribbling down her email address with a hand that wasn't quite steady. I'll review it immediately. The documents arrived while I was still on the phone. There in crisp PDF format was my signature, or rather an impressive forgery of it. Below that, my parents' names, Barbara and Howard Carson. I need to look into this, I said carefully. You'll hear from me or my lawyer soon. I hung up and immediately called Victoria Hernandez Torrey to her friends, my best friends since college, and, more importantly, my financial attorney. Check your email, I said when she answered. I need you to tell me these documents aren't real. While Tori reviewed the files, I pulled up my banking app. The beach house deed was still there in my name, but something felt wrong. I dug deeper into my accounts, looking for any other irregularities. My phone buzzed, a text from my father. Sweetheart, your mother and I are having everyone over for dinner tonight, 6 p.m. sharp. Important family matters to discuss. Another buzz. Bring the beach house keys. We need to check on some maintenance issues. I stared at the messages, my hands shaking with rage. The casual audacity of it all. They must think I still didn't know. Flashback to childhood. I was 12 when I first realized my parents weren't like other parents. While my friends' families saved for college or took modest vacations, my parents lived beyond their means, designer clothes, flashy cars, country club memberships. We deserve nice things, my mother would say, admiring her new jewelry. We came to America with nothing. Now we can finally enjoy life. They'd left their home country in their 20s, carrying dreams as big as their suitcases were small. Dad had a business degree he couldn't use because of language barriers. Mom had been a teacher but couldn't get certified here. They took whatever jobs they could find at cleaning houses, working construction, night shifts at 24-hour diners. I grew up hearing their immigration story so often it became mythology. The hardships they'd endured, the sacrifices they'd made, all for me and my sister. We gave up everything so you girls could have opportunities, Mom would say whenever I questioned a decision. Family comes first. Always. What they never talked about were the gambling debts, the credit cards maxed out and abandoned, the investments that mysteriously failed, the loans from friends that were never repaid. By 16, I was working after school to buy my own clothes while they drove a Mercedes. At the office, Tori called back as I was staring out my office window, watching the afternoon light filter through the skyscrapers. Emily, these documents, they're professionally done. The notary stamp belongs to Wallace Bennett. Isn't he your parents' old friend, the attorney? Wallace. Of course. At every family gathering, always laughing at my father's jokes, always ready with friendly legal advice. I should have known. Get dressed up, Tori advised. Go to dinner. Act normal, but don't say a word about what you know. We need to figure out how deep this goes first. I agreed, then spent the next hour in a daze, rehearsing what I might say, what I might do. My phone kept lighting up with texts from my mother. Don't be late. Wear something nice. Sarah and Justin will be there. Sarah, my younger sister, the artistic one, the emotional one. Always struggling financially because she'd chosen art school against our parents' wishes. Always slightly resentful of my success, not knowing how hard I'd worked for it while our parents drained me dry. As I packed up my laptop, the office already emptying for the day, another memory surfaced. My first apartment search in college. The landlord's face when he ran my credit check. Sorry, miss. There are several delinquent credit cards in your name. I can't approve this application. Credit cards I'd never applied for. Credit cards my parents had opened in my name when I turned 18, then maxed out and abandoned. It took me years to repair my credit, working 3 jobs while taking a full course load, living in a dingy basement because no reputable place would rent to me. Did Sarah know about any of this? Or had she been kept in the dark, another pawn in our parents' manipulations? At my parents' house, at 5:55 p.m., I pulled into my parents' driveway, noting their new Mercedes parked out front. A $90,000 car, and yet they needed to steal from their own daughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. My mother opened the door before I could knock. Darling, she exclaimed, air kissing my cheeks. You look tired, working too hard as usual. Barbara Carson, always immaculate Chanel suit, perfectly coiffed hair, manicure that never chipped. How many hours had I spent as a child watching her prepare for social events, admiring her elegance, wanting to grow up to be just like her, never knowing the price of that elegance was paid with other people's money. You know me, Mom. I forced a smile. The house smelled like my mother's signature beef stroganoff. Through the dining room doorway, I could see Sarah and Justin already seated, heads close together in conversation. Sarah looked up, offering a small wave. There was something in her eyes, worry? Guilt? I couldn't tell from this distance. My father emerged from his study, that familiar charming smile on his face. Howard Carson, the charismatic businessman whose actual businesses always mysteriously failed while his gambling habits flourished. I'd spent years idolizing him, believing his stories about bad luck and market forces, never realizing that his failures were self-inflicted. There's my successful girl, he boomed, arms wide for a hug. Did you bring the keys? I reached into my purse, fingers brushing against the cold metal. The keys he wanted so badly, to the house they tried to steal right out from under me. Of course, Dad, I said, keeping my voice light. They're right here. His eyes lit up as he reached for them, and in that moment, I saw everything clearly. The years of manipulation, the careful grooming to be the responsible daughter they could eventually leech from, the way they'd always treated my success as a family resource rather than my own achievement. Flashback of the beach house purchase. You're spending how much? My father had asked last year when I told him about the beach house. Not with disapproval, with calculation. I'd seen that look before, when he assessed potential marks for his schemes. It's an investment, I'd explained, and a reward for myself. Seems selfish, my mother had commented, sipping her wine. With all that money, you could help your sister with her student loans. Or help us renovate this place. The guilt trip, their favorite weapon. I'd spent years vulnerable to it, writing checks for emergencies, covering temporary shortfalls, funding promising investments that never paid off. But the beach house was different. It was the first major purchase I'd made purely for myself, without considering their needs or wants. My sanctuary away from everyone, including them. It's my money, I'd said firmly. I earned it. The look that passed between them, I should have recognized it then. The look of predators recalculating their approach. The dinner. But first, I said, pulling the keys back slightly, just out of my father's reach. Why don't you tell me what kind of maintenance issues we're dealing with? The flicker of panic in his eyes told me everything I needed to know. Oh, just some issues with the deck railings, my father said smoothly, but his hand dropped to his side. You know how coastal properties need constant upkeep. We moved to the dining room, where my mother was laying out her elaborate spread. Sarah barely looked up from her wine glass, while Justin offered an awkward wave. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with my mother's expensive serving knife. What's this important family matter we need to discuss? I asked, taking my usual seat. My mother and father exchanged glances. Sarah suddenly became very interested in her water glass. Well, sweetheart, my father began, his voice taking on that silky tone he used when trying to close a deal. Your mother and I have been thinking about retirement. Really? That's wonderful. What are your plans? I kept my voice neutral while serving myself some stroganoff. We've had some financial setbacks, my mother said primly. The market hasn't been kind to our investments. I thought about the casino receipts I'd found in my father's jacket when I was 16. The bookie's threatening phone calls I'd intercepted one summer. The investment opportunity that had somehow required my grandmother's heirloom jewelry as collateral. By investments, do you mean gambling? The words slipped out before I could stop them. The clatter of silverware against china filled the sudden silence. My father's face reddened slightly, but he maintained his composure. Now, Emily, that's not fair. We've had some unfortunate circumstances, yes, but we've always managed to handle our affairs. Until now. The thing is, my mother cut in, her voice sharp. We need your help. You've been so blessed with success, and we've always supported you. It's only right that you support us now. I set down my fork. Support you how exactly? The beach house, my father said. If we sell it now, we can clear our debts and have enough left over for a comfortable retirement. It's the perfect solution. Perfect for whom? I asked. The house is in my name. I bought it with my money. We're your parents. My mother snapped. Everything you have is because of us. We sacrificed everything to give you opportunities. Sarah finally looked up. Mom, maybe we should stay out of this. Be quiet. Our mother hissed. I pushed my plate away, my appetite gone. Let me get this straight. You want me to sell my house to bail you out of your gambling debts. Don't be dramatic, my father said. We've already taken care of the paperwork. All you need to do is sign the listing agreement with Justin here. Justin suddenly became very interested in his napkin. The paperwork, I repeated slowly. You mean the loan documents you forged my signature on? The room went deadly quiet. My father's charm evaporated, replaced by something colder. Who have you been talking to? He demanded. Atlantic Shore Bank called today. Interesting conversation. I turned to Justin. Did you know about this? He wouldn't meet my eyes. Emily, it's complicated. It's not complicated at all, my mother interrupted. You owe us this. After everything we've done for you, all the sacrifices we've made. Sacrifices? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Like the college fund you gambled away, the one grandma set up for me? Or maybe you mean the credit card you took out in my name when I was 18? Sarah's head snapped up. They did what? Oh, you didn't know about those? I asked her. I found out in college when I tried to get my first apartment. My credit was already ruined. Took me years to fix it. That was different, my father protested. We paid those off eventually. And now you're trying to steal my house. I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. Did Wallace help you forge the documents? Or did you find someone else this time? My father's face went pale. You leave Wallace out of this. Why? Is he as nervous as you are about fraud charges? My mother stood up so fast. Her wine glass toppled, spreading red across her pristine tablecloth. How dare you threaten us after everything? Stop saying that. I slammed my hand on the table, making everyone jump. You didn't sacrifice anything. You took. You always took. And now you've gone too far. I pulled out my phone and held up the screen, showing the email from Andrea at Atlantic Shore. You have 24 hours to come clean about the forgery, or I'm going to the police. You wouldn't, my father said, but his voice shook slightly. Try me. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. Oh, and Dad, about those beach house keys? I turned back with a cold smile. I changed the locks last week. Funny how things work out. The last thing I heard as I walked out was Sarah asking, What did you two do? In the car, I got into my car, hands shaking so badly I could barely turn the key. Adrenaline coursed through me, leaving me lightheaded. I'd never confronted them like that before. Never stood my ground against the guilt trips and manipulations. My phone was already buzzing with messages, but I ignored them. Instead, I called Tori. How did it go? She asked. Time to move to phase 2, I said. How fast can you get those fraud papers ready? I'll have them on your desk first thing tomorrow. I pulled out of the driveway, watching my parents' house shrink in the rearview mirror. In the window, I could see my mother gesturing wildly, my father with his head in his hands. For a moment, I felt a stab of guilt. They were still my parents. I still remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike, my mother nursing me through childhood illnesses. But then I remembered the look in their eyes when they talked about my beach house, not pride in my achievement, but calculation of what it was worth to them. How much they could extract from me, like they always had. The game they'd been playing for years was finally over. They just didn't know it yet. Flashback college years. You need to help your family, my mother had insisted during my sophomore year of college when I'd gotten my first decent paying internship. Family comes first. I'd been living on ramen noodles and working 3 jobs to make rent, but I'd sent them money. Because that's what good daughters do, right? What I didn't know then was that the same day my check arrived, they'd booked a cruise. A necessary break. My father called it when I found out. Your mother's been under so much stress. Meanwhile, I'd skip meals to send them what they'd asked for. Tori's office. Tori's office always reminded me of a war room. Today, spread across her desk were bank statements, loan documents, and property records, the paper trail of my parents' betrayal. Look at this, she said, pointing to a highlighted section. The trust your grandmother set up specifically prohibited using any properties as collateral without the trustee's approval. That's you. These loan documents shouldn't even exist. I leaned closer. So how did they get around that? They didn't. Wallace backdated documents showing the trust was dissolved last year. She shuffled through papers. But I have the original trust documents right here, still active. My phone buzzed. Another message from my father. I ignored it. There's more, Tori continued. I had my assistant dig deeper into your accounts. Look at these transactions. She pulled up a spreadsheet on her monitor. Small withdrawals ranging from $500 to $2,000 scattered across different accounts over the past 5 years. They've been skimming, I said, feeling sick. All this time. A knock at the door interrupted us. Sarah stood there, looking uncomfortable. Can I come in? She asked. I nodded, and she slipped inside, clutching her designer purse like a shield. A purse I'd probably paid for without knowing it. I need to tell you something, she said, about Mom and Dad. Let me guess. You knew about the loan. She flinched. Not exactly. I knew they were planning something with the beach house. I told them they were going too far, but she trailed off. But what? Mom said you owed them, that you'd gotten everything while I got nothing. Sarah's voice cracked. I was jealous, okay? You, with your perfect career and your beach house and everything just working out for you. I stared at my sister, 3 years younger, always the artistic one, the sensitive one. The one our parents had convinced needed special care and extra support. The one they'd used to guilt me into giving them more, more, more. Working out? I laughed bitterly. Do you remember when I couldn't get an apartment in college? When I had to work 3 jobs just to afford a room in that sketchy basement? They told you that was because I was bad with money. That's what they said. No, it was because they opened credit cards in my name and maxed them out. I pulled out my phone, showing her the old credit reports I'd saved. See these? All opened when I was 18, all defaulted within a year. Sarah's face went pale. I didn't know. There's more? Tori interjected, sliding forward a bank statement. Remember those savings bonds Grandma gave you both for college? Mine disappeared, Sarah said. Mom said the bank lost them. No, I said quietly. They cashed them all. Both of them. Yours and mine. Look at the dates. Sarah's hands shook as she read the document. This was right before my first semester. They said they couldn't afford my tuition, that I had to take out loans. While they were gambling away our college funds, I finished. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. I've been so awful to you all this time. I thought. You thought what they wanted you to think. I handed her a tissue. They played us against each other. What are you going to do? First, Tori said, we're filing fraud charges about the forged loan documents. Then my phone rang, cutting her off. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello, Miss Carson? This is Richard Morgan from the Housing Authority. There seems to be an irregularity with some property documents filed under your name. I put the call on speaker. What kind of irregularity? Well, the foreclosure paperwork that was submitted. There are some discrepancies in the dates. Technically, this could delay any proceedings for quite a while. I caught Tori's eye. She nodded slowly. How long a delay are we talking about, Mr. Morgan? Could be months. These things have to be done properly, you understand? Especially with the trust involvement. After I hung up, Sarah looked at me questioningly. What does this mean? It means, Tori said with a slight smile, that we have time to do this right. Your parents can't touch the house while the foreclosure is delayed, and while they're distracted by that. We can start looking into their other activities, I added. Wallace's involvement, the gambling debts. I want to help, Sarah said suddenly. I know things about their friends, their habits, where they hide stuff. I studied my sister's face, seeing real remorse there. Are you sure? They're still our parents. They stole my future, she said firmly. And they tried to steal yours. I want to make it right. Flashback to Sarah's art school. Art school is a waste of money, our father had pronounced when Sarah announced her college plans. No one makes a living as an artist. But it's what I love, Sarah had protested, tears in her eyes. Love doesn't pay bills, our mother had said dismissively. Look at your sister. She's practical. She's studying business. She'll be able to support herself. What Sarah didn't know, what I only discovered years later, was that our grandmother had set up equal college funds for both of us. Funds our parents had depleted long before either of us reached college age. I'd worked my way through school. Sarah had taken out massive loans because our parents convinced her there was no other option. Another way they'd driven a wedge between us and me, the successful one who didn't need help. Sarah, the dreamer, who couldn't survive without their guidance. All lies. The second confrontation. The next family dinner was my mother's idea. To clear the air, she'd said on the phone, her voice honey-sweet. I agreed immediately. It was the perfect opportunity to set things in motion. I arrived early, watching my mother flutter around the kitchen like nothing was wrong. She'd made her famous pot roast, trying to recreate the comfort of childhood dinners when things were simpler. The bank called again, I mentioned casually, helping her arrange plates. Her hands stilled for just a moment. Oh, apparently, There's been a lot of banking fraud lately. They're doing a big investigation. I kept my voice light. Isn't that interesting? The serving spoon clattered against the counter. I'm sure it's nothing to do with us. Of course not, I smiled, though Wallace seemed quite concerned when I ran into him yesterday. Before she could respond, the doorbell rang. Sarah arrived with Justin, followed shortly by our father. The tension in the room was electric. How's the beach house? My father asked, trying to sound casual. Secure, I replied, meeting his eyes. Very secure. Dinner started quietly, the only sounds the clinking of silverware and my mother's attempts at small talk. I waited until everyone had wine in hand before speaking. I had an interesting meeting today with the fraud department at Atlantic Shore. My father's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Emily, they're launching a full audit. Something about irregular loan applications. Apparently, they're finding all sorts of fascinating patterns. That's enough, my mother snapped. We're trying to have a nice family dinner. Like when I was 10? I asked. When you told me my college fund would be safe if I just trusted you? Justin shifted uncomfortably. Maybe I should go. No, stay, I said. You knew about the loan documents, didn't you? That's why you agreed to list the house. I didn't know everything, he protested weakly. But you knew enough. My father stood up suddenly. You're making a mistake, Emily. We can work this out privately. Like you worked out Grandma's trust? Or Sarah's savings bonds? Sarah's head snapped up. Tell them what you told me, Justin. All eyes turned to him. He looked like he wanted to disappear. I saw the paperwork, he admitted. Wallace asked me to backdate some property assessments, said it was just a formality. You had no right to involve him. My father growled at me. Like you had no right to forge my signature? I pulled out my phone, set it on the table. Everything's documented now. The fraud, the theft, all of it. One call, and it all comes out. My mother's face went pale. You wouldn't dare. We're family. Family doesn't steal from family, Sarah cut in. Family doesn't lie and manipulate. Be quiet. Our mother hissed. No, I interrupted. She gets to speak. We both do. For once in our lives, you're going to listen. Flashback grandmother's trust. My grandmother, my father's mother, had been different. Prudent, careful with money, suspicious of get-rich-quick schemes. She'd watched her son's reckless financial behavior with growing alarm. You remind me of myself, she told me once, when I was 16 and had just opened my first savings account. Always thinking ahead. What I didn't know then was that she'd already set up a trust for Sarah and me, with strict provisions that our parents couldn't access the funds. That she'd made me the trustee when I turned 25, not telling me because she feared my parents would manipulate me into giving them control. She died believing she'd protected us. She couldn't have known how far they'd go to circumvent her wishes. The public exposure, senior financial abuse. A growing crisis in our community. I read the headline aloud to Tori as she reviewed the draft article on her laptop. Her journalist friend, Melissa, had done an excellent job weaving my parents' actions into a broader expose, names withheld for now. This will destroy them, Tori said, not looking up. Are you sure? Before I could answer, my phone lit up with a text from Sarah. Mom's credit card just got declined at Nordstrom. She's having a meltdown in the store. It's starting, I said, showing Tori the message. The account freezes are kicking in. My phone rang. Wallace's number. I put it on speaker. Emily, please, he said without preamble. Your father's been calling me nonstop. They're desperate. Are you ready to hand over that signed confession? A heavy sigh. Meet me at my office in an hour. Bring your lawyer. Wallace's office looked exactly as I remembered. Dark wood, leather chairs, success oozing from every corner. But now, he sat behind his desk like a deflated balloon, sliding a manila envelope across to Tori. It's all there, he said. The dates, the forged documents, everything. I kept records, just in case. Smart man, Tori said, reviewing the papers. They'll lose everything, Wallace muttered. They already lost me, I replied. This is just paperwork catching up. The beach house evening. The sunset painted the waves orange as I walked along the shore, phone pressed to my ear. The article runs tomorrow, Melissa confirmed. Want to know the best part? 3 other families came forward with similar stories after I started asking questions. Your parents weren't just stealing from you. Send me the details, I said. And Melissa, thank you. My phone buzzed again. My mother this time. I let it go to voicemail, then played the message. How dare you freeze our accounts? We are your parents. You have no right to. I deleted the rest. A black SUV pulled up to my house. Sarah stepped out, carrying a box. Found these in Mom's closet, she said, setting it down on my deck. More bank statements, credit card applications, even Grandma's old checkbook. We sat watching the waves, the box of evidence between us. Justin confessed everything, Sarah said quietly. How they pressured him to help with the property assessments, how they promised him a cut of the beach house sale. I dumped him. She smiled slightly. Turns out I don't like cowards. My phone lit up. A text from Richard. Atlantic Shore is launching a full audit. Multiple accounts flagged for suspicious activity. Then another message. This one from an unknown number. Ms. Carson, this is Detective Laura Wilson with the Financial Crimes Unit. We'd like to schedule an interview regarding some recent fraud allegations. I showed the messages to Sarah. No turning back now. Good. She stood up, brushing sand from her jeans. I'm tired of their lies. Flashback, the beach house purchase. I remember the day I closed on the beach house standing alone on the deck, watching the waves crash against the shore, feeling for the first time in my life that I had something that was truly mine. Something they couldn't touch or diminish or take credit for. You should put it in the family trust, my father had suggested when I mentioned the purchase. What trust? I'd asked. The one your grandmother set up, he'd said smoothly. It's a tax advantage. I declined, instinct warning me to keep this purchase separate. Thank God I'd listened to that inner voice. The arrest. The newspaper hit driveways at 6 a.m. By 6:15, my mother was screaming into my voicemail. How could you? Your own parents. We're the talk of the entire town. Her voice cracked with rage. If you don't fix this right now, I deleted the message and pulled up the article on my phone. Melissa had done a masterful job. The story detailed multiple cases of financial exploitation, with my parents' actions featured prominently, though still unnamed. Their description was unmistakable to anyone who knew them. Tori arrived at my house just as another call came in, this time from Detective Wilson. We're executing a search warrant at your parents' residence, she said. Given the evidence you provided, we'd like you to come down to the station to make a formal statement. I looked at Tori, who nodded. We'll be there in an hour. As we drove to the station, texts flooded my phone. Family, friends, distant relatives, even my mother's bridge club members, all expressing shock and asking if the story was about my parents. At the police station, Detective Wilson led us to an interview room. Wallace has already given his statement, she said, sliding a document across the table. Signed a full confession this morning. Smart man. Got ahead of the charges. What about my parents? I asked. Officers are at their house now, but Ms. Carson, you should know, they're not taking this well. Just then, her radio crackled. Detective, subjects are attempting to destroy documents. Requesting backup. Excuse me, she said, standing quickly. Please wait here. Tori squeezed my hand. You okay? Before I could answer, the door burst open. My father stood there, face red with fury, 2 officers right behind him. You ungrateful little, he started. Sir, step back. One officer ordered, grabbing his arm. She's lying, he shouted as they pulled him away. Everything we did was for her. My mother appeared in the doorway next, eerily calm. We raised you better than this, she said coldly. After everything we sacrificed. You mean after everything you stole? I stood up. The trust fund, the credit cards, the forged documents. We deserve that money. She snapped. Who do you think you are? I'm the daughter you tried to rob. I pulled out a stack of papers. And here's every illegal thing you've done to me since I was 18, documented, witnessed, and ready for the prosecutor. The color drained from her face. Behind her, Sarah appeared, looking shaken. Mom, she said quietly, they found the other forged documents in your jewelry box. Our mother spun around. You helped them search? You betrayed us too? No, Mom, you betrayed us both. Both of us, for years. Flashback Sarah's discovery. The night after our first confrontation, Sarah had called me, sobbing. I found my old sketchbooks, she'd said. The ones from high school. I was looking through them and there was this drawing of Mom wearing Grandma's emerald necklace. The one they said was stolen in that break-in? I'd asked. Yes. But look at the date on the sketch. It's 3 months after the supposed break-in. They sold it, Emily. They sold Grandma's jewelry and told us it was stolen. Another lie. Another betrayal. How many more would we discover? The station continued. Detective Wilson returned with more officers. Mrs. Carson, we need you to come with us now. This isn't over, she hissed as they led her away. Family doesn't do this to family. Exactly, I called after her. Remember that next time you try to steal from your children. The station buzzed with activity as officers processed my parents. Through the window, I could see reporters gathering outside. The story was breaking wide open. Sarah slumped into a chair beside me. They found everything. The gambling receipts, fake loan applications, even Grandma's old checkbook with practice copies of her signature. Are you okay? I asked. She laughed hollowly. No, but I will be. She pulled out her phone. Look at this. Wallace has been disbarred. It's all over the legal websites already. Tori returned from talking with the prosecutor. They're charging them with multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation. Given the evidence and Wallace's confession, they're looking at serious time. Good, I said, standing up. Let's go home. Outside, reporters shouted questions, cameras flashing. I ignored them all, walking straight to my car. Through the station windows, I could see my parents being processed, my father's shoulders slumped in defeat, my mother's face a mask of cold fury. They're saying Dad had gambling debts with some dangerous people, Sarah said as we drove away. That's why they were so desperate for the beach house money. They'll have plenty of time to think about their choices now, I replied. Flashback first signs. I remember finding casino receipts in my father's coat pocket when I was 16. Thousands of dollars lost in a single night. It's just entertainment, he'd said when I confronted him. Everyone needs to relax sometimes. But then came the phone calls from angry men with gruff voices. The mysterious business trips that coincided with major poker tournaments. The jewelry that disappeared from my mother's collection, piece by piece. The clasp broke, she'd say. Or, it's at the jeweler's being cleaned. I'd known, on some level. I'd always known. But they were my parents. You're supposed to trust your parents. The beach house evening. My phone buzzed with a text from Richard. Foreclosure proceedings officially terminated. Your house is safe. Later that evening, standing on my beach house deck, I watched the sunset over the water. My parents had tried to take this peace from me, this sanctuary I'd built for myself. Instead, they lost everything. Their reputation, their freedom, their carefully constructed thought of respectability. Sarah joined me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. To karma, she said, handing me one. To consequences, I replied, clinking my glass against hers. The waves crashed against the shore, washing away another day and with it the last remnants of my parents' control over my life. The courtroom present day. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters when my parents arrived for their arraignment. Gone were the designer clothes and confident struts. My mother wore a plain black dress, my father a rumpled suit that hung loose on his frame. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. Emily. Tori touched my arm. You don't have to watch this. Yes, I do. Inside, we sat near the back as the charges were read. Fraud, forgery, financial exploitation. The list went on and on. With each count, my mother's spine stiffened. My father just stared at his hands. How do the defendants plead? Not guilty, Your Honor, their court-appointed lawyers said. Of course. They'd never admit fault, even now. During the recess, Sarah showed me her phone. Local news websites were blazing with headlines. Prominent couple charged in major fraud scheme. Parents accused of stealing from daughters. Financial predators in our community. There's more, she said quietly. Remember the Andersons? Their daughter came forward. Mom and Dad tried the same thing with them last year. A tap on my shoulder made me turn. Richard stood there, holding a manila envelope. Ms. Carson, these just came through from the title company. Your house is officially clear of all claims. They've invalidated the fraudulent loan completely. I took the envelope, feeling its weight. Thank you for everything. He nodded. Sometimes karma needs a little help. Flashback the pattern. The pattern had always been there. The emotional manipulation. The financial exploitation disguised as family needs. The way they pitted Sarah and me against each other. Your sister is so sensitive, they tell me. She needs more support. Your sister is so selfish, they tell her. She never helps the family. Divide and conquer. A strategy as old as time. What they hadn't counted on was that eventually, we'd compare notes. The verdict. The verdict came down on a clear autumn morning. I sat in the courtroom, Sarah's hand gripping mine, as the judge addressed my parents. The evidence presented in this case reveals a disturbing pattern of exploitation and betrayal, she began, not only of your own children, but of numerous members of this community who trusted you. My mother stood rigid, her prison jumpsuit a far cry from her usual designer wear. My father seemed to have aged decades since their arrest, his shoulders permanently slumped. In light of the overwhelming evidence and the severity of your crimes, this court sentences you to 8 years in state prison, followed by 5 years of supervised release. You are also ordered to pay restitution to all victims. The gavel struck. It was done. Outside the courthouse, Tori handed me a thick envelope. The last of the restitution paperwork. Every victim has been contacted, every stolen dollar accounted for, including Grandma's trust. Especially that? Sarah asked. Tori smiled. The trustees voted to redistribute it equally between you two, as she originally intended. My phone buzzed. A message from Richard. Wallace just finished his community service presentation at the senior center, warning elderly residents about financial fraud. Ironic, isn't it? A reporter approached, microphone extended. Ms. Carson, any comment on the sentencing? Just this, I said, facing the camera. Trust should be earned, not assumed. Even from family. Especially from family. The beach house final scene. Back at the beach house, Sarah and I walked along the shore. The waves crashed against the rocks where our parents once planned to build their retirement dream home. With my money, of course. Did you see Mom's face? Sarah asked. When they read the victim impact statements? First time she's ever had to listen to the truth about herself. Eleanor's statement was brutal. All those fake investment opportunities. The counterfeit luxury goods. The truth usually is brutal. I picked up a shell, examining its broken edges, but necessary. My phone rang. Detective Wilson, updating me on the ongoing investigations. More victims had come forward, more charges being filed. The web of deception kept unraveling. They'll never stop, will they? Sarah said after I hung up. Even in prison, they'll probably try to run some kind of scheme. But they can't hurt us anymore. I pulled out a small box from my pocket. Speaking of which, inside were 2 sets of keys. The originals my father had demanded so long ago. What are you going to do with them? I walked to the edge of the water. Something I should have done years ago. The keys arced through the air, glinting in the sunlight before disappearing beneath the waves. Symbolic, maybe, but it felt right. Back on the deck, Tori waited with papers spread across the table. The trust is officially reformed. Your grandmother would be proud. Of sending our parents to prison? Of you both. Of standing up for yourselves. Of breaking the cycle. My phone buzzed one last time. An email from Melissa. Stories going national. Producer wants to do a documentary about financial abuse in families. Interested in sharing your experience? I showed it to Sarah. She nodded slowly. If it helps other people recognize the signs, she said, maybe some good can come from all this. The sun was setting now, painting the water in shades of gold and crimson. Somewhere in a prison cell, our parents were beginning their new reality. No more manipulation, no more schemes, no more control over our lives. You know what I don't feel? I said suddenly. What? Guilty. They kept telling us we were betraying them. That family doesn't do this to family. But they were wrong. Family doesn't steal from family, Sarah finished. Exactly. I raised my glass. To real family. The ones who build you up, not tear you down. As darkness fell, we sat listening to the waves, no longer haunted by the weight of obligation or the chains of manipulation. Our parents had tried to steal my house, my future, my peace. Instead, they'd lost everything that truly mattered. The beach house stood strong against the darkening sky, its lights warm and welcoming. Not just a house anymore, but a symbol of everything they couldn't take. My independence, my strength, my truth. I thought of the keys sinking to the ocean floor, releasing the last hold they had over me. Some doors need to stay closed forever. Some trusts, once broken, can never be repaired. But others, like the bond between sisters who survived together, like the friendship that helped expose the truth, like the strength that comes from standing up for yourself, those grow stronger with every test. The waves kept rolling in, washing away the old, making room for something new, something true, something mine.